Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I have a Variant 3.2.2 exploration guide. As we approach these last three quests of Variant, it's going to get harder and harder, and in that regard, it becomes more and more about your champion roster and your determination, i.e. items and units, so if those are what you're pushing with to get this exploration, because there's not always like a meme or a cheese strategy. Sometimes you just got to buckle down and get good. That said, as far as easy paths go, I think that these top three paths could all be deemed the easiest path depending on your roster, and this bottom path by far is the hardest of them all. So this top one here I think is enhanced bleed, enhanced abilities, and enhanced crits. So I'll have timestamps for all the paths, but really this top one, the only problem fight is the domino. The second path here is like Plague Mine. So the hard fights here are the Red Skull and the Dormammu. This third path here is a Biohazard path, and the only reason I include this on the easiest list is because if you're running Ghost, she just hits really hard throughout this entire path, and you can really just use Ghost to clear the whole path. You don't need to bring anyone else, and you're gonna get around those problem fights for the most part. And then finally this last path is definitely the hardest, so I'll let you decide based on your roster and the paths themselves. But that said, I'm gonna dive right into path 1. So path 1 is enhanced abilities, enhanced bleed, enhanced crits. Essentially, don't get hit. So first up, you have a Gwenpool. This is relatively a free fight as long as you can dodge both her specials. Both of them are punishable. Free fight. Next up is Black Panther. Dodge his specials. They're both physical specials. Free fight. Venom the Duck. This fight's going to be easier if you know how to dodge his special 2, because you can play a little more aggressive and don't have to wait as long to bait. But if you can't dex the special 2 properly, just bait special 1s. And again, that's a nice free fight. Guillotine here is a free fight. Physical specials, nothing too difficult there. And then finally, this is like the kind of roadblock on this whole path. It's just this domino. It's just a really big domino sitting at 53,000. So she's kind of a pain. There's nothing difficult in regards to nodes, just the sense that if you're gonna get hit by her, you're gonna feel the pain. So do be careful there, because it's like really easy going all the way up to that, and then it's just like, whoa, that's a big wall. As far as the second path here, we have Plague Mine. Plague Mine is essentially your power is drained every 20 seconds. So if you're trying to get big specials off, just make sure that you're throwing them fairly frequently. It's best to use special 1, maybe special 2 reliant champion tier, or anyone with any kind of fast power control. But for the most part, as long as you're non-special reliant, this really isn't too bad. Red Skull is easier if you have anyone with an armor break, but that's not always optimal there. The biggest thing is bait his special 1s, because the special 1s are very easy to dex, and do keep in mind that if you do it properly, the special 1 can be heavy countered. So he can special 1, you like dodge the initial punch, he teleports and then throws a long fist. After he teleports, you dodge back once, and then you hold your heavy until he throws down his fist, and then you can let go of your heavy and you'll be able to heavy punish him. This will be really good if you're using champs like Iron Man Infinity War to get that armor break on him with the application of the heavy. Next up is, and then another tip on Red Skull is don't hit into his block, because that's just going to get you killed. So it's a lot of special 1 baiting and then punishing as a result. For Vision, beware that he'll start with a little over a bar of power. It might be a little bit under, but I'm pretty sure it's a little over a bar of power. Personally, I like to start the fight very aggressively with like a parry 5-hit combo, force block, parry 5-hit combo to push him into a special 2, and then you can bait a special 2 before the next synthesis will trigger. But after that, like after you've properly baited that SP2, the synthesis will trigger fairly soon, so you're not going to want to push him past 1.5 bars of power. You actually want to stay like closer to 1.3, 1.1 to avoid him building just instantly to an SP3 and it being a bad time. And then as long as you keep him at a bar of power and you're baiting special 1s and only special 1s, you don't have to worry about synthesis. But if you're good at keeping track of synthesis, essentially immediately after his synthesis procs, you can push him into a special 2 and then bait special 2s to juggle the power a little bit better. Next up is Hawkeye. This is a relatively free fight as long as you're good at dodging projectiles. Dormammu, you're going to want to bait the special 1, and if you're getting just completely destroyed by Dexterity Mastery plus the degeneration for Dormammu, don't be afraid to turn the Dexterity Mastery off. You don't need it in order to dodge Dormammu's special 1, as long as you're baiting only the special 1, and then you're not getting punished by the precision buff. Finally is the Psylocke here, and this SP1 is very, very easy to dodge, but the SP2 is dodgeable as long as you're good at like dodging essentially a laser, because the Might Attack is virtually a laser, and it's a good time from there. This third path here is Biohazard Toxic Splash. So you want to bring at least a bleed immune, double immune if possible, because if you hit into the opponent's block and you build a poison, whenever the defender throws a special, you're going to take a bunch of damage for each poison on top of the poison damage you were already taking. So either bring a double immune or a bleed immune and never hit their block. Personally, Ghost was an absolute cheat code for this. Even like a 4-star unawakened Ghost is going to do really, really well, because the Biohazard node and then converting those into Furies is going to make this whole path way easier for you. So Korg, if you're going to want to make sure you use light attacks or a Korg counter for the anti-Thorns mechanic to get through his Rock Shield phase. Remember that when he has Rock Shield and he's awakened, he has a chance to shrug stuns. So if you are going for that parry, make sure you hold block after the parry triggers, just to confirm that the stun sticks. It's only like a half a second before the stun is shrugged, so you can just hold block, wait like a half a second, and if he's still stunned, then you can do your standard combos from there. If you're using general text, you know, you're going to want to get really, really good at dexing his special 1. Dork Lessons has a good video on that, but if at all possible, push him into a special 2, and then remember, light attacks are your way for non-Korg counters to avoid taking the Thorns damage from his Rock Shield. Next up, we have Thing. You want to push him to 15 rock stacks and then bait a special in order to have him remove all the rock stacks. If he's not at a special bar of power yet, then you need to hit into his block, and this is where bringing a immunities champion can really help you out on this Thing, or bring someone who bleeds, then you can remove stacks that way. You know, again, Ghost is just a really, really good option there. Highly recommend. Next up is Unstoppable Colossus. As long as you evade the specials, watch out for the Unstoppable duration. That's a relatively free fight. Morningstar, bait special 1s or get really, really good at dodging the special 2. The special 2 you should treat more like a projectile than a laser, but as long as you can dodge that properly, it's totally fine. Just be aware that she siphons Furies, regens, and power gains. So don't bring a champion that is reliant on any of those 3 buffs or has those 3 buffs to take down this Morningstar, and you're already going to have bleed immune for the Biohazard node, so that's a relatively free fight. King Groot, bait the special 1s. It's a relatively free fight as long as you're aware that when he has a Fury, he shrugs debuffs, including the parry stun. So, you know, if he has a Fury, you're not going to get that you're not going to get that stun from the parry. So just be mindful of that. He's a little bit tanky, but other than that, it's a free fight. Next up is Iceman. So the Cold Snap is going to hurt a little bit, but it's bearable as long as you start the fight on the healthier side. If you can dex his specials, this is overall a free fight. Finally, path 4, and by far I think the hardest path in my opinion, is this Spite Improved Power Gain path. Now you need like a proper power control champion, or maybe like Ghost with Hood synergy. I believe that's how I handled it in order to get through this fight, this path in general. So first up is Doctor Strange. You're going to have a better time if you can bait special 1s at all. Otherwise, you just want to keep him hard power controlled and then just hammer into him the best you can. Really, really rinse this fight until you're comfortable doing a lot of parry combo techniques, because you don't want to be dexing, and like even Doctor Strange's special 1, you're just better off parrying it so you're not triggering Spite, because there's going to be a lot of power gain there. Next up is Sim Supreme. So he gains power when he changes phases based on how many genetic mutations he has. Those are based on the number of staggers he places on you. So just be mindful. For the most part, as long as you're like parry comboing and you're not doing a lot of dexing, you can hard pummel into this guy, as long as you're like properly baiting special 1s, because a lot of times, like if he has 100 genetic mutation and then he throws a special 1 and then or he has a bar of power and then the genetic mutation triggers, you're gonna eat a special 3. So again, it's really about having a power control champion here, power lock, or someone who can take a special 3. Stark Enhanced is really good with a taunt, but for the most part, that Sim Supreme is a relatively free fight. Next up is Thor Ragnarok. Here, when you hit him 20 times, he gains a huge power gain buff, and you can end that buff early by knocking him down with a special. So essentially, you just want to make sure you use your special to where it's timed, where the last hit of the special is hit like number 21, so it knocks him down. So he gains the power gain buff, 21 hit of the special knocks him down, and then no power gain buff on Thor Rags. And then be mindful that if you try to intercept him, he will auto block. You won't get stunned, but it is proper annoying if you're comboing and he's suddenly auto blocking. That's not great, but overall, like, this is just a matter of getting down that combo counter and then specials, and it's a free fight from there. Next up is Heimdall. Heimdall, you're really gonna want to bait special 1s, because if you try to bait a special 2, it's gonna be a bad time. Other than that frustration, it's a relatively free fight. Here we have Cable. Cable has a chance to gain a power gain every time he gains a bar of power. So if you're not using a power control champion here, it's definitely going to be very frustrating. But you know, that's the key for the whole path. Essentially, just don't bring a bleed to this guy or you'll be consistently degenning. The special 1, you can parry the initial part and then dex the back half, and you won't be taking too much damage. And if you dex the back half properly, you can actually get like a very quick punish in. But the timing on that is a little tricky, and sometimes you'll get punished as a result. Do be mindful, but the special 2 is fully dexable as long as you're not too worried about the power gain. Next up is Loki. As long as you dodge his specials, this is a relatively free fight. And then finally, Mephisto. Mephisto is going to just be 10 times better if you have an Incinerate immune, if at all possible, or like Ghost with Hood synergy, so you're at least not taking damage while you're phased. If you're not afraid of that, then don't be afraid to bring, or if you're afraid of the Incinerate damage, don't be afraid to bring a hard counter for this guy, because he is a little bit on the healthier side, and it's going to be a little bit longer of a fight. And it's best if you can special or power lock this guy in any way, shape, or form. But again, that is the key to the path. So that's all 4 paths. And finally, we have the Storm Boss. So the nodes on Storm Boss are Typhoon, Power Efficiency, Rolling Thunder, Unblockable Specials, and Protection Shielding. So essentially, Typhoon is every time she throws a special, her specials do more damage. Every time she throws a special, she places a charge on the opponent, and after she's thrown 10 charges, your power is completely depleted. So if you're trying to throw specials, make sure you do it before she's thrown 10 or every rotation of 10. Otherwise, you're just going to lose your power in general. Her specials are 50% less cost, so it means she's going to be throwing specials throughout the entire duration of the fight, but you'll find that once you get into the rhythm, that actually works to your advantage, because both her special 1 and her special 2 are punishable. Rolling Thunder is every time she throws a special, her damage on specials in general is increased, but again, not a problem so long as you're dexing. All her specials are unblockable, so you have to dodge every single one. And then Protection Shielding is, you know, a period of just like guaranteed safeguard on her where she can only take a certain amount of damage. So just make sure you're throwing like your big damage specials if you're using like Ghost or Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, etc. to beat her. Make sure you're just throwing them at times where you're not going to get ripped off by the protection shielding for damage. So like a general play guide, I would say you have to dodge every special. Keep in mind that her special are 50% less cost, so it's going to be virtually non-stop. If you're doing it right, you can punish all of her specials, so it actually works to your favor of a rotation of like 5-hit combo, hold block, dodge special if she throws it, or parry if she doesn't. And anytime a big hit special comes around, just make sure that you're hitting her hard first and then throwing the special, but that's really not too big of a deal. And then finally, bear in mind that every 10 specials you're getting power drained. So if you are special reliant, then you don't want to get cucked in that regard, trying to throw your special and then getting hit instead. And honestly, an alternative way is to just not be special reliant and just pummel her in between the windows, because honestly, you can do the rotation throughout the whole fight and never even throw a special, so you don't have to worry about that node interaction. So that is variant 2.2 exploration. Hopefully I'll be done with the last chapter soon, but hey, we're 2 out of 3 chapters done. Talk to you all